Logan Jacob's Quest, and today I just finished watching episode 3 of Ms.Marvel. Obviously, full spoilers ahead. And yeah, so just jumping off right after the end of last episode, Kamala was saved after being chased by the DOD, the Department of... No, DODC, sorry. Department of Damage Control, that's what it is. She was being chased by them and their drones and all that. And she was saved last minute by the cool kid in class. I forget his name. I can't remember his name for some reason. Anyways, she was saved by him in his car, and then in the back seat was his mom, who she had a couple of visions of seeing earlier in that episode. And so here we pick up right there, and basically they try to explain everything. And here's what they say. They're like, okay, so me and my friends here, and it's a whole group of people, we are from a different dimension, you know. And right away I'm starting to think of, like, you know, Multiverse of Madness, which by the way just came on Disney Plus. You know, Multiverse of Madness and all these other dimension type things. So I'm like, okay, so we're playing with different dimensions just casually now, you know. They're like, all right, we're from a different dimension and we've gone by different names. And I was so sure that they were about to say Inhumans. I was so sure they were literally about to be like, oh, we have a whole bunch of different names. Some call us this, some call us that, some call us Inhumans. But they didn't say that. You know, and I was like, oh, that would have been like, you know, that would have been the perfect way of, like, you know, making them Inhumans while also being like, but we're also called other things. So, you know, Inhumans is just one name that you could call us if you wanted to. But they didn't do that, which I thought like, man, that was really just like the perfect opportunity to go there. But oh well, they didn't. So that's not the direction they're going. Instead, they say we're also known as Jinn, or, you know, as us in the West would call them genies, right? But, you know, Jinn, right? And basically they're like, yeah, we are beings that can touch the light, as they call it, and we're, you know, but since we're from a different dimension, we can't access the light from here, which is how they basically, the light is what they're calling Kamala's powers, okay? And they're saying, like, yeah, the Bengal must have unlocked your abilities and you can access it because you were born here. And they kind of mentioned, like, hey, couldn't the what's his name, the kid from school, couldn't he also access it? Because, you know, he, you know, if you're his mom and he was also born here, not in the other dimension. And they kind of like gloss over that, but I feel like that's going to end up becoming a major, like, plot point, is that he will also get these powers. And we'll kind of talk about it later, but the powers, I'm kind of questioning exactly what the powers are at this point, because Kamala's are pretty clear, like the light constructs, Green Lantern style light constructs, right? So we get that. But anyways, basically what they're trying to do is they're saying, hey, that Bengal can help us open a portal back to our dimension. And this was what you were meant to do, and, you know, your great-great-grandma was one of us or something, and she went missing and we haven't seen her since. So, you know, but you're here to finish what she started. You can help us get home. And right away you're like, okay, clearly we're not hearing the whole story. Like, something fishy is happening with the great-great-grandma, and she disappeared, and, like, no one knows exactly what happened. And you remember all the aunties, the Illuminati, talking last week. So, you know, it's clearly there's a huge mystery there as to what really happened. Oh, and I skipped this part. We actually do get a quick flashback at the very beginning of the episode, back in the 40s, of this lady. And again, I gotta remember people's names, but yeah, this kid's mom, this lady here who she had the visions of, and who we can assume is the great grandma, of them discovering the Bengal in, like, this ancient tomb. And we hear, like, a war going on outside, which is probably the civil wars that they were talking about happening back in the day. And then they also mentioned that there was supposed to be 2. Like, oh, isn't there supposed to be a second one? They're like, oh, we can only find this one. Oh well. So maybe that second one will eventually go to the other kid, who they kind of, like, glossed over the fact that he could probably also use the Bengals. So that's probably what's going to end up happening. I imagine they're going to find the second one and he's going to get it, and now you got 2 superpowered people. But anyways, they're going to try and get her to help them get home. And she's like, okay, well, just, you know, give me the night to just process all of this, right? Like, oh yeah, no problem. And then so she gets her friend, it's not Brandon. What's his name? Anyways, she gets her friend from school, the smart kid, to help her figure out things about like accessing different dimensions and opening portals, which they drop Eric Selvig's name, which was a cool little name drop. And then basically what he comes back with is that, like, well, it might actually be dangerous because it's like this immense amount of power in order to open a portal to another dimension and all this, which, if you remember, Eric Selvig kind of had that experience in Thor the Dark World, opening dimensional portals and stuff like that. So it all kind of adds up, anyways, so yeah, basically Kamala comes back with them saying, like, she texts the kid saying, hey, I want to help, but it might be too dangerous, so we're gonna need like some time, we're gonna need to like figure it all out. And then the mom finds the kid's text message saying, okay, well, we don't have any more time, we need to get home now, so we're not asking anymore, we're just gonna take the bangle, I guess, or force Kamala to help us in some way. Meanwhile, Kamala's brother's preparing for his wedding, and it's this pretty cool sequence. We see the ceremony, and again, I'm being exposed to a culture that I know very little about, so it's actually pretty neat to see. And then they have like this whole awesome dance sequence, like this big celebration, and it was actually all really, really cool. Looked like a lot of fun. Looks like all the actors are just having like the time of their lives just doing this whole thing. But of course it all falls under attack. They're being chased, and the kid walks in and he's like, okay, my family's here, all the Jinn are here, and they're gonna kill everyone, so we got to get everyone outside. They pull the fire alarm, and there's like this big chase / fight sequence where Kamala has to like fight off all 4 of them, but eventually, in the middle of like Kamala's captured and she's surrounded, she gets saved at the last minute by the Department of Damage Control, which she manages to escape, but they do arrest all the other Jinn. I imagine they probably would have arrested her too. And her friend, the other friend, again, I cannot remember people's names, the one who was just elected as like the board member for the mosque, she finds out because she just saw her use her powers for a second. She finds out like, oh, you're the superhero who's like causing us all kinds of problems and making the mosque get visited by the Department of Damage Control. The government is showing up at this mosque, which of course, a lot of connotations there of the US government, and and I like that the show is not like shying away from that, by the way, that like the fact that the FBI and the government, they mention that like, oh, they're monitoring all the mosques and the good Muslims and the bad Muslims, and they're trying to like get us to spy on our own kind of thing. It's like these really heavy issues, and they're like not shying away from it at all. Really fascinating stuff, and I like that they're not just like, like this isn't just like a Disney show where they're just glossing over it. It's like, no, we're gonna actually address the fact that this is happening in real life, and now we have this government agency just like trying to search the mosque without a warrant, and then we have to like tell them to like, no, go get a warrant, you can't just do whatever you want. Like really tense stuff is happening here. Like a lot of real world things. Anyways, but yeah, so basically the friend, who you can imagine is going to be mad at Kamala now, because Kamala tried to tell her that she has power. She tried like in 2 episodes in a row now, she's tried, but she hasn't gotten the chance to. And so of course now this friend kind of feels betrayed, like, hey, this superhero is making the government come to the mosque and kind of interrupt our whole people, kind of have high tension things happening here. So she's gonna be mad at Kamala, definitely. And meanwhile, now is that kid dead? We saw him like in the middle of the fight. He tried to show up and protect Kamala for a second, and he fought one of the guys off, but he gets tackled and thrown down from the second story balcony. So like, we saw him unconscious. He might be dead. I doubt it. Kind of like, I don't know. He's probably not dead, I guess, because why would they introduce him and then kind of mention that like, oh, he might be able to use the bangle too? It's like, I guess they wouldn't kill him off like that. But in any case, they're probably all captured by the DODC. Wait, Department of Damage Control. Yeah, DODC. And meanwhile, Kamala manages to escape to her house, which, by the way, I'm sorry, but like, this government agency doesn't know by now that it's Kamala. I'm just saying, like, they have drones and they have like surveillance stuff everywhere, and somehow they still are not able to piece together, like, oh, this is Kamala who's here. She's the one doing this. You know, let's go to her house, because she's just at her house. She's not like hiding, you know. So I don't know. That is the one unbelievable thing where it's like, the amount of surveillance that this government agency has been doing, and like the amount of snooping around, and they just showed up just right on time, so you know they were just waiting. They're probably following these Gen, you know. It's still kind of unbelievable they somehow don't know it's Kamala yet. But I'm sure they will soon enough. But Kamala gets a phone call from her grandma, not her great grandma, the one who's missing, her grandma, who says like, oh, you have to come home, you know, have to come home to Pakistan or whatever, right? Like, I forget the name of the specific, come home to somewhere, starts with like a K. Anyways, you have to come over here, and you saw the train in that vision you had for a second, and I also saw that train, so you have to come over here, and we're gonna do something. You and your mom have to come. So it's kind of interesting that like, they imply that the mom knows more than she lets on, but at the same time she doesn't seem to know about the Jinn that are here and anything else that's going on. So it's pretty interesting. I imagine next episode is when we're going to get even more answers, because, you know, we're definitely like in the middle of the plot here. Like we know they're okay, so we know that they're Jinn, and we know what the Jinn want, and those are going to be the bad guys who are chasing them. But there's still like this whole other mystery component about the great grandma and what really happened, and where's the second Bengal at, you know, stuff like that. And now, how is the Department of Damage Control really going to play in here? Because they've managed to capture the Jinn seemingly pretty easily, which I guess makes sense, right? Like this agency is essentially the replacement of SHIELD, it would seem, you know, because normally, if you remember that Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. show, that's essentially their role, was to capture these enhanced individuals. But now it's the Department of Damage Control that are like, hey, let's go capture these guys, you know, which is kind of interesting, because it doesn't seem like it would be what their agency does, but they're basically acting like S.H.I.E.L.D. right now, so okay. Anyway, so they seem to capture the Jinn without much trouble at all. So I'm wondering if they're going to end up becoming the main bad guys, or somehow the Jinn escape and they have to ask Kamala for help, or like, it's very kind of open still exactly which direction this is going to go. But yeah, overall, this episode was definitely more of like an action and kind of like exposition heavy episode. This was not like, you know, one of the funnier comedic upbeat episodes, and I think they did say something to the effect of like, this show is going to get darker as it goes on, which I can definitely imagine happening, you know, because the Jen went so quick from being like friendly and trying to just ask for help, and they immediately turned to like, we're just gonna attack this place, and if anyone gets in our way, we're gonna try to murder them, you know. Like, it was such a quick turn that I'm like, okay, I can see how this can get dark pretty quick. But yeah, overall, I'm still enjoying the show. I'm enjoying the mystery. I'm enjoying like where this could possibly go. You know, and they keep on dropping. This whole show is just like, it's just blanketed and decorated with Marvel references and Marvel Easter eggs, and you know, and I think that's what I really appreciate by it, is that like, it's definitely still its own element, you know. It's still its own thing. It feels like it's in its own world and its own like vibe and all that, you know. It doesn't feel like it's trying to be matching up with like Falcon and Winter Soldier level of like seriousness, but it's also still like, hey, but this is the Marvel universe and Marvel stuff is everywhere. So it's kind of interesting that like, you can tell that's what Moon Knight was trying to be. Like, Moon Knight was very much its own thing, where it's like you could essentially watch Moon Knight without knowing any Marvel stuff, whereas this one, it's like you're gonna appreciate all the Marvel stuff you see, but it's also still its own thing. So that's what I like about the show. You know, of course, the cast and I like her family and just all the comedic elements that happened in there. But yeah, the other thing I want to say, before we sign off here, other than just like, hey, I'm still enjoying the show, looking forward to the next episode, looking forward for answers, and just we're watching the show unfold. We're still in the unfolding of like the plot stage. We're not quite like in the wheel of things happening, but we're just like, things are still starting to happen. But the last thing I do want to say though is that reports came out about how this and this is all based off like one streaming TV, one smart TV statistics or something. So this is not like indicative of like everything really, but it is a sign of like Ms. Marvel had like incredibly low viewership ratings over the course of like 5 days of the last couple episodes or something. And look, I think that there's a lot of things that are probably like heading into why this show's not being checked out. I think the main thing, which is pretty obvious to most people, it was competing with Obi-Wan. This show comes out the exact same day that Obi-Wan was coming out, and people like me, like, you gotta choose one show to watch, and then you gotta go to work, or you have to go to bed, or you gotta make dinner. Like, you really only have time for like one or two shows. And so Ms. Marvel already having to compete with something on the same platform, like that's a hard ask, to compete on the same day on the same platform. That seems strange, and honestly I'm kind of surprised they didn't just move it to Thursday or something. But anyways, Obi-Wan is over now. The finale happened, my review is up, and so from this point on, Ms. Marvel is kind of on its own. Of course, today, the same day as the Obi-Wan finale, Multiverse of Madness also came on Disney Plus. So this episode in particular of Ms. Marvel is competing with two major things on the same platform. So I'm definitely getting this feeling that, I don't know, maybe Marvel just didn't plan on Ms. Marvel being like this big hit, and they're just kind of letting it, like, we're gonna air it, whoever watches it, that's great, but we're not gonna like let it get in the way of other shows or something. I don't know, I don't really know what the thinking was, but yeah, they definitely like like, why would you put Multiverse of Madness here on a Wednesday? Why would you release this show here on the same day as the finale of Obi-Wan? It's interesting. It's just really interesting, some of the choices being made. They don't seem to, I don't know, it doesn't seem like they care too much about how well Ms. Marvel does. I mean, it's getting really great reviews critically, it's just not enough people are watching it, So I don't know, maybe word of mouth will help people kind of come back to it, especially now that there's not going to be any competition on Disney Plus for the remainder of this show's run, because I don't know, it does seem kind of weird, because it's like, this is a Marvel show, and it's pretty, like, everyone that watches it seems to be enjoying it, so kind of super weird that like it's just not getting the buzz, I guess. I don't know. So anyways, there's that. If you are not watching this show for some reason, go watch the show. It's really fun. It's just a fun show, it's not like super serious. I mean, I know it can't compete with Obi-Wan, but it's a fun show. It's a really well made thing. It's worth a watch. Anyways, all right, so that is Ms. Marvel. I believe next Thursday, next Thursday, I think. What does it say? It's 22nd, 29th, 28th. No, not next Thursday. This is like 2 Thursdays from now. Sorry, my bad. So not this next week. I think the week after that. Thor: Love and Thunder is coming up pretty soon. I think it's like on the 7th or the 6th or something. Yeah, of course I already have my tickets. I'm going to be seeing that as soon as I possibly can. And yeah, we're all really excited for that one. Just more Marvel stuff. Yeah. Alright, and I will see you guys on the next episode of Ms. Marvel. Bye.